Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the second part of the Ultimate Childhood Trauma Iceberg. Let's get into it. Next up on this list, we have adult claymation videos. Almost every single claymation video at a first glance can look child-friendly. The problem is, not all of them are for kids. I think the trauma for this one could definitely stem from a kid accidentally clicking on a Robot Chicken episode. Also, while doing research, I found out that there's a Thing adaptation, the movie The Thing adaptation for Pingu, but it's in claymation, and it's actually it goes kind of hard, honestly. Like, one of the penguins gets infected with a creature, and then it bursts out of their stomach and tries to affect the other humans, and it's just a whole big gore fest, but it kind of goes hard. Next up on this list, we have Aam Mamon. Aam Mamon counterpart is a YouTube video uploaded to the YouTube channel Sleazy Elf, and it's just a mess. There's nothing there. It's just flashing lights, like all over the place animation, as many loud noises as you can like fit into like one audio sample. The problem with this though is that the thumbnail looks like, you know, what an educational video in the 90s looked like. I don't really see what's disturbing about this, but if a kid stumbled across it and just was like expecting like a cute little fun animation and just, you know, ended up getting their eardrums blown out, I would be pretty bummed out too. Next up on this list, we have Ao Oni. Ao Oni is a freeware horror game developed by No Props in 2008. The game follows Hiroshi and his classmates as they investigate a deserted mansion. The Ao Oni, which is Blue Demon in Japanese, will tirelessly pursue the player, and your job is to avoid him at all costs. Now, even though I have never personally heard of this game before, apparently there's such a cult following in Japan that they adapted it into 2 feature-length movies and a series of light novels. Okay, next up on this list, this one's a little bit convoluted, but I'm just going to give you my best take, and I hope that it's kind of accurate. Next up on the list is Aspen Trees. Now, when you think about it, there's nothing really traumatizing about an aspen tree. It's just a tree. I looked it up. I was like, okay, is there like scary bugs that can like live in aspen trees? Or like, is their bark like sharp or something? And you I don't know, you could scrape yourself on it when you were a kid. And although in like a literal sense, there's nothing traumatizing about an aspen tree. I thought maybe I'm thinking too deep here on the surface level of an iceberg. But what I thought was aspen trees are notorious for excelling really well after traumatic events, like forest fires, like when they do controlled burns of areas. Aspen trees are like on top of it, like they're the first to come back. So I thought it was like reverse traumatized iceberg. I thought it was like, you know what this is saying? This is saying the kids that have gone through it, the kids are the aspen trees. It's like a metaphor of how the kids are excelling after they have gone through trauma, and the trauma being the fire and the kids being the aspen trees. I think I'm just way over it. Like, there you go. You got to look inside my mind. I'm going to leave that in there, but I think I'm way off here. But I didn't know what else to include for it, so that's my best take. Next up, we have Bazetta. Bazetta is the boss of Snow Peak Ruins and the 5th boss overall in the game The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. She's a woman known as Yetta, who becomes obsessed with a mirror shard. Apparently these mirror shards are full of dark energy, and she becomes so obsessed with it that she turns into a giant ice mass that wants to just attack Link on the spot. I think the part that was so traumatizing about this is that Yetta is such a cute and lovable little character. She's such a little button the entire game, and then you get to this area where she tries to kill your ass, and then it just throws everything in a loop. Next up on this list, we have cemeteries. Now, I think this one is pretty dark. Here's the thing about this iceberg. Here's the thing why I think it's fun and engaging to kind of tackle these icebergs a lot of times, because some of these entries are so open-ended that you can really input your own opinion into each one. Like, for a lot of these ones, such as cemeteries, such as some other things that we'll cover in the future of this video that aren't super specific topics, you can kind of go off and kind of give your own reasons why you think that these are on here. So cemeteries is it's kind of a dark one to have so early on in the iceberg, because there's so much that could be really bad about it, but there's also a lot that could just be like, oh, it wasn't fun to go to funerals as kids and like whatever. But like, if you think on a darker scale, it can be like your first experience with death or losing somebody you really care about. Next up on the list, speaking of open-ended, is clowns, especially in the mind of a kid. There's very few things that are as scary as clowns. Especially, here's the thing that I like to talk about. Clowns inherently aren't that scary. a lot of times when they first became popular, they were portrayed in very good light, like inviting them to birthday parties, and you know, they were supposed to be a symbol of like fun and enjoyment. And now with movie series such as like It and like Pennywise being the main antagonist of that, it's really transformed how people view clowns, especially since even some serial killers have taken the identity of a clown, like John Wayne Gacy, and used that as like a vehicle for him to commit his murder. And that's just freaking terrifying. Next up on the list, we have Coco from Animal Crossing. Coco is just like every other NPC in Animal Crossing, except for the fact that she's a little bit funny looking. She's a rabbit that kind of resembles a coconut. She has like a husky face with 3 holes to resemble the eyes and the mouth. And it's a little bit scary because she looks almost hollowed out. She has like lifeless eyes and she has nothing inside of her mouth, just like a dark pit, like a dark hole. And I think that might have been something that could have bothered a kid when they first played this game. Next up on this list, we have DNA Productions logo. DNA Productions brought us some of our favorite cartoons as kids, including Jimmy Neutron. Who doesn't love Jimmy Neutron? The downside to this company is that their logo includes this 3-eyed mutant monkey that apparently gave a lot of kids like a lot of nightmares. Like I'll have a picture up here, and I don't think it's that bad, but like maybe it fits the name, you know, because DNA splicing, you know, you have like weird abominations or whatever. Next up on the list, we have Dark Harvest, which is an episode from the TV series Invader Zim. So in this episode, Zim is getting like an X-ray scan or something, and somebody mentions that his guts kind of look alien-like they don't look like a human. And he goes to the science lab and he sees a physical representation of the human anatomy, and he's like, well, my guts don't look like that. What the hell? What's wrong with me? Is something wrong with me? And Zim's friend is scared that if he goes to the nurse's office and gets checked up, he'll figure out that, you know, something's a little off with him and he'll freak out. So he goes and he gets a checkup, and instead of it just being a normal nurse checkup, he regurgitates his guts from his stomach onto the floor, and his floppy little like small intestine, it looks like that. It looks like his small intestine is like oozing juices out on the floor, and it's just gross. Afterwards, they're just acting like nothing happened, and it's supposed to be a fun little show, but like apparently a lot of kids found that pretty disturbing. Next up on this list, we have Han Solo frozen in carbonite. Star Wars is an all-time classic, and when you're asked what your favorite characters from Star Wars are, a very common answer is Han Solo himself. He's one of the main protagonists from the very beginning and becomes a very lovable character alongside his partner Chewbacca. And there's this famous scene of Han Solo getting captured and frozen away inside of carbonite. I don't even know if carbonite is a real material, but he gets frozen in like this black metal almost. It like molds to the shape of his body. And I'm like freaking out when I'm a kid watching this, because I'm like, you know, my favorite character just died straight up. Because how are you living that? Like, we all know watching it now that he survives and comes back, but if you think about it scientifically, there is no way you don't even have any oxygen in there. It's like if somebody took a really thick garbage bag and they just like wrapped it around you. I can definitely see how this could be traumatizing to a kid. That's your favorite guy. That's your main man. You guys, you feel so helpless because all of his friends have to watch him get encased as well, and you just watch them get encased and you're so bummed out. You're like, what's gonna happen? Is he gonna die? It was my first experience being stressed out. Next up on the list, we have Herobrine from Minecraft. Herobrine is a Minecraft creepypasta that was posted to 4chan in 2010. It was a picture. It was a very foggy picture. It was like Minecraft in its very early days, and it was a really thick fog, and it had Herobrine in the little back left corner just kind of peering into the guys, and he's like, look at this, somebody's haunting my world, oh my god, this is a real problem, we all need to be watching out for this now. And you know, as a kid, I believed it. I was like, this is crazy. Like there was countless videos of how to spawn Herobrine into your world, or how to exorcise this Herobrine demon from your Minecraft world so he doesn't delete your save file. Now it's become kind of a meme because the YouTube specifically is so oversaturated with, we found Herobrine in Minecraft, calling Herobrine at 3 a.m. in the morning, he FaceTimed me. You know, it's so ridiculous. Like a lot of these things have just blown everything so out of the water that it's hard to take it seriously now. But at the time when there was like so much speculation, a lot of people were like genuinely like, what is this guy doing? Like, who is this guy? And this is another one that I was talking about that seems very open-ended. Next up on the list, we have hospitals. Now, this one can go either way. You could be like, you know, kids hate hospitals because it's your first time going to get blood work done and you hate needles. Okay, maybe I'm just speaking from personal experience here because I've met some people that say, oh, I love getting blood work done. What the fuck? You love getting blood work done? I had my first ever time going to get blood work. There was a gentleman that had really thin veins come in to get blood work done. And the nurse had put the needle into him and left him to kind of just drain, naturally. And he preemptively kind of ripped out the needle and it just gushed blood everywhere. He tore the vein up. I was 11 and I was traumatized. I remember there even being a girl that was my age in the waiting room with me. And I was trying so hard not to cry because I was so freaked out by it that I had to go next. And it was just maybe I even did cry. I don't know. When I've gotten blood work done, this is fairly recently. Well, more recent than, when I was 12 years old. This was about a couple years ago. I got blood work done and they had accidentally fed the needle through my vein. So usually you put it up into the vein, and I got pretty obvious veins. I got big gushers, but they went into it at an angle, and instead of going into the bloodstream and sucking it out, they went through it. What happened is it bled through the other side into my arm underneath the skin, and it wasn't painful or anything, but I had a dark shadowy patch on my forearm for weeks. And now all my veins that were in that one spot have just completely gone. And everything is just kind of blank slate. It was kind of scary. And it's I still hate blood work because of these things. I hate going and getting it done. Okay, but past that though, enough about me. Some other things that I wrote down on my list here would be sick loved ones. That's a good one. And I think that one's pretty real as well. Because imagine going to the hospital or having harsh memories about, let's say your grandma or your grandpa being in the hospital with a disease or something, there's nothing fun about that. It's just kind of a sucky place. Every single time, I'm never excited to go to the hospital. Anyways, next up on the list, we have I Feel Fantastic. I Feel Fantastic is a YouTube video that was released in 2009. The video contains footage of an android named Terra singing about how she feels fantastic. The whole thing is very unsettling. She doesn't really move around a whole lot. She has a very, static voice. Whenever you hear a human talk or sing, they have dynamics. You can tell that it kind of feels human because they're putting emotion and stuff. Just like me talking to myself on my floor right now. I'm talking to you with emotion. There's nothing there. There was none of that there whenever you watch this video. And that's kind of what makes it unsettling. You know what it is? I even wrote this down and I think this is a great way to put it. She almost is pretending to fit in. Pretending to try and be something she's not. And that's what's the most unsettling part of the whole thing. And that's what I think is so cool. Next up on this list, like I talked about earlier, we have Pennywise the Clown from the franchise It. Now, there is 2 It adaptations in film. One of them was a TV series that was in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then the very notorious movies that have come out recently, and a lot of people really, really enjoy them. I'm going to be doing most of my information based off of the newer one because that's the one that everybody remembers. That's the one that a lot of these kids are getting traumatized by because the first one isn't that scary. I spoke about how clowns were terrifying earlier, and that still stays true with this guy. They did a very good job of making him a terrifying character. But he's not a clown. He's actually an elder entity that can be whatever it is that you are most scared of, and I think that is pretty awesome. He also feeds off the fear that he instills in children to make it even worse. Although it doesn't traumatize me now, if I watched it as a kid, I wouldn't be allowed in the movie theater if I was a kid. My parents would be like, I'm not letting you go see that because it would be too much for me. It would, because they did a really good job. Next up on this list, we have Judge Doom's reveal. Judge Doom is a fictional character and the main antagonist in the 1988 film Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Apparently, the scene that people are talking about that was traumatizing to the kids is Judge Doom wears these really dark sunglasses and a bowler hat the entire film. And close to the end, he does a reveal to show he's supposed to be this big, strong, powerful man, and he's so fueled by rage. He takes off his sunglasses and his hat, and he looks quite, pretty goofy. This man, he's got these big fake bulbous eyeballs, and he's got he went to the hairdresser and he said, just fuck my shit up as bad as you can. Next up on the list, we have the Jurassic Park death scenes. I adore Jurassic Park, and even some of the new movies like Jurassic World, the original one, are pretty good. Whenever it's a memorable character, there's like a nice big lead up, lots of tension building every single time, and then a big jump scare or a nice, gory scene. Like everything that they did and that they're so famous for in the Jurassic Park movies is that almost all the effects that they did were practical. They used dinosaur animatronics, and it was just so cool. It made it feel so real to us as kids, and I think that's why people appreciate it so much. The one that was the most memorable to me, I can't remember which film exactly it was a part of, but this guy was trying to escape off the island, and he got his Jeep stuck in like a mini waterfall, and a Dilophosaurus, the guys that have the big frills, came up, and there was like this big thing where he was like toying with him, so like the guy didn't pay any mind, because it's like, this is just a little dinosaur, there's nothing scary about it. And after he had done, there was this whole scene of him like stalking the guy. He was in the back seat of his car, and then he shot this like acidic ooze into his eyeballs and then used that as a way to kill him, and I think that was really cool. Okay, next up on the list we have Korra Vore animations. If you guys don't know, Vore is like when somebody is like super sized, like super oversized because they ate somebody else, and for a lot of people it's like a kink, and I'm just gonna we're just gonna brush right past that one, because like that's traumatizing to everybody, and we don't need to talk about that. I don't want that to be a part of my channel. We get it, we know why it's here, and we're moving on, okay? Next up on the list is Order 66. This one was really, really fascinating to me, because this is actually the answer to a question that I've had since I was a kid for a very long time. Order 66 is a fictional military term used in the Star Wars universe. There was, in the third film, a great purge of the Jedis, and at the time, I had no idea what was going on. I was like, why is there this big scene of all the stormtroopers killing off all the Jedis? They've been living in harmony for so long. Why now are they killing everybody? And apparently, so Order 66 is the protocol made by Darth Sidious that says, whenever I say this protocol is a go, we're executing all Jedis. It's called the Great Jedi Purge. And the protocol itself is like built into the nanochips of each stormtrooper, so they have to do it against their will. And I'm like, that is dark as hell. When I watched the original Star Wars movies as a kid, I was like, dude, Darth Sidious, if I was that ugly, I would be a grumpy man all the time too. My guy's just misunderstood. People they don't get him. They don't know what he's going through. But after reading this, no sympathy. You deserve to be ugly as hell, you little wrinkly ballsack man. Okay, now I did say that one entry in particular made me kind of uncomfortable to research, and that's this next one coming up. We're talking about the kids show Ren and Stimpy. Now, although I'm sure a lot of people have some good memories watching Ren and Stimpy on like Sunday morning cartoons or whatever, but a lot of the stuff that they had in there was really, really inappropriate for the audience that they were trying to cater towards. And one in particular, they had one episode that was called Adult Party Cartoon, and it was just like awful. I couldn't even watch it. I couldn't even sit through it because I found it so like uncomfortable. I was watching, it's just how many crude and over-sexualized jokes can we fit into an episode, without like crossing the line. And it was bad. It was bad. Like they crossed the line 100%. At some points, there's a very famous shower scene in this particular episode. I would just not recommend it. It's not funny. It's not clever. I would just avoid it, and I can see why it's on here, but like, oh my god, like they just went way over the top, and they just like it was just stupid and over sexualized for no reason, just to be over sexualized, and that was it. Okay, and now that that's over, let's switch back to something that's not terrible and is actually cool and creative. Next up on the list, we have Salad Fingers. If you were to ask me, like, as my first experience on YouTube was, the first thing that I could recall is watching Salad Fingers with my brother and trying not to get scared. It is so unique, and it was so popular at the time. It was like almost a challenge to watch it and not feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now, I know it can be a little bit shocking. It definitely has a shock factor to it, and it can be definitely unsettling at times, but it has a story, and the characters have emotions. And if you just got to dig a little bit, like there's something really cool there. And I think David Firth, the guy that created the whole thing, did a really fantastic job making something memorable and special. Everything kind of felt like it had a purpose. Like Salad Fingers is, please watch this if you haven't watched this. I'm not going to give a whole lot of context here. I don't want to spoil anything. This is a fantastic series. Please go and watch it if you haven't already. He did such a fantastic job creating the character that is Salad Fingers, and you can see like the deterioration of his mental state over time and how it fits the rest of the story, and you can start to piece everything together. And I just think it's a fantastic watch. Next up on this list, we have Scar's death. Scar from The Lion King. They actually went kind of hard when they animated this death scene for Scar. Let me set the scene, okay? You have Simba, who just came back to avenge the death of his father. That Scar killed in the very beginning of the film, if you haven't seen The Lion King. Also, that's not spoilers. The movie's been out for longer than I've been out, okay? So if you haven't seen it, then that's too bad. They're fighting on a mountain peak, surrounded by flames, and Simba gets the best of Scar and pushes him over the cliffside, and he falls down like to a pit below that's surrounded by a bunch of hyenas. And these hyenas had been aiding Scar in his mischievous plans the entire time throughout the rest of the movie. You know, of course, knowing Scar and his character, he just does whatever's best for him. So he's like the gaslighting master. He would like blackmail Simba and like the rest of the lions and everybody, and team up with the hyenas and try to cause a bunch of havoc. And then when he would finally try to get back on good terms with the lions and everything, he would be like, no, I don't care about those hyena guys or anything, you know, they're just hyenas to me. They ain't lions like you guys. And, you know, the hyenas pretty much saw through his bullshit, and they were like, oh, but we're not your friends anymore, which was kind of hard. And then the final scene was just a pack of hyenas pouncing onto Scar as he gets engulfed in flames, and they kind of went hard with it. You know, for a kids show, it went kind of hard. Okay, next up on the list, we have Scared Shrekless. I remember watching this when it came out. Scared Shrekless is a Halloween short film released in 2010. This short film includes your 4 fan favorite characters. You got Gingy, you got Puss in Boots, you got Donkey, and you got Shrek. And during this short film, each character takes turns telling their own scary story. And I remember when I watched it, not only did I love it so much, but I didn't understand what a short film was at the time. So I was like, no way, they released a brand new Shrek movie and it's Halloween edition? That is so crazy, man. And I was expecting like an hour and a half long of these short stories because they were actually kind of cool. They did a really good job. And some of them, they tried to do some scary stuff with it, like some spooky stuff. And it definitely could have bothered a kid if I watched it when I was like a little bit younger than I was when I watched it. But I loved it to death. Next up on this list, we have scorpions. Now, I got a lot of weird pets, okay? I got geckos, I got salamanders, I got bearded dragons, okay? That's a little unorthodox for most of you guys. I like cats and dogs. I got dogs too. To feed these guys, you have to feed them like all these gross worms. I have like moth larvas, like horned moth larvas. I have giant super worms, crickets, all the creepy crawlies that you could think of, and none of them bother me. As a kid, scorpions are terrifying because they look terrifying. And as an adult, scorpions are terrifying because some of them can actually seriously mess you up. Like, there's no joke about that. Some of the most dangerous animals in the entire world are scorpions. And thank God I live in a place that's covered in snow half the time, because I don't know how you Australian people do it. You have like death walker scorpions, or death stalker scorpions, I think they're called, which have like venom potent enough to kill you within a span of like 15 minutes or something. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's just fine. You know, I find that in my shoe every single morning. You guys are psychopaths, borderline mental institution worthy psychopaths. I still think that they're kind of cool. Obviously, the dangerous ones are scary, but I've considered a couple times being like, I would rather get a scorpion as a pet than a tarantula as a pet, because I've had spiders have always kind of given me the heebie-jeebies, but scorpions, I've thought those guys are kind of cool. And if you get like a big one, like a forest scorpion or something, they're non-venomous, or their venom is so weak that usually scorpions that have the bigger claws are less dangerous because they're actually using those claws. Where if you look at the most dangerous scorpions in the entire world, they got itty bitty little pincers, but they have the most potent venom that you will ever feel in your entire life. But I remember specifically as a kid, I had an exclusive, very bad memory with scorpions in particular. In my backyard, we used to have a mini playground, like a build your own playground kind of deal. And I loved it. You know, you had like your little swing set, you had like the little slide and the ladder that you could climb up. But underneath it, like the main section that had the slide and everything, there was like it was boxed up, because when you connected everything together, it kind of made like a little hidey hole underneath it. And we would play hide and seek a lot of time, and I would go underneath the hidey hole. And one time there was a scorpion sitting underneath in the hidey hole next to me, and I freaked out so bad. I was wearing no shoes at all, because I was just like, the grass is safe and I don't need shoes because nothing can hurt me when I'm on my little plastic playground, but they can definitely come and get your ass. And he was trying to get my ass, and he was tiny. Like, it was nothing scary, but like, oh my god, I've never felt so much fear in my entire life than I did, because I was like right next to him, and then like there was only one way out, and I had just crawled in and not noticed him. So I smacked my head on top of like the slide trying to get out so fast, and it was just good times. Okay, next up on this list we have Sonic CD, The Fun is Infinite. Sonic CD is a game released by Sega for the Sega CD in 1993. Apparently in this game there's a hidden message. It's almost like a hidden screen that looks like this. I'll put it up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. The Japanese lettering that you see here actually translates to Fun is Infinite as Sega Enterprises. Fun is Infinite as Sega Enterprises. That's not me, being dyslexic. That's what it's not a perfect translation, obviously, but that's what it roughly translates to in English. It's creepy enough as is that they just have something kind of thrown in there. But what really threw people off was if you look really closely at the Sonic faces in the background, they're like droopy and like distorted and like completely unorthodox. And I don't know why they're like this, and people don't know why they're like this, but they're definitely a little bit unsettling. And if I came across this as a kid, I would definitely be freaked out a lot. Okay, next up on this list, we have Spirit Halloween Animatronics. Spirit Halloween is like a seasonal store that comes around only during Halloween time, because they sell almost exclusively Halloween-oriented goods. When they come around for only 2 months out of the year, they really try to go like balls to the walls and really try to impress you. Every single store that I've been to personally is just covered with the animatronics. They're all hooked up, they're all ready to go. One misstep and you're getting jump scared by some random guy or like a little tiny Chucky doll. And yeah, as a kid, just like the run-of-the-mill one that just like wobbles a little bit and then makes like some gurgly noises could be pretty scary, but they've gotten pretty creative lately. I went this last October just as like, it's a fun little place to shop for like little accessories and stuff. Like, you don't have to buy costumes and you don't have to go there just for stuff to participate in Halloween. You can just go because sometimes they sell cool stuff or like cool clothing pieces or whatever. And I straight up said to the person I went with, I was like, this is not going to scare me. I'm just going to step on this on purpose and it's not going to get me and I'm going to be totally fine. And I did, and it actually made me jump, because what they've done now is they have like these spring powered ones. Like, if you fold paper back and forth a bunch of times and you like scrunch it together and then you let it go and it like pops out a little bit, they've done that with like an animatronic. So these things will jump like 10 feet and they'll jump up and above you. So it can feel so intimidating. Like, you can just jump at them and they're like crouched down on the floor, and then 2 seconds later they're like up and like 5 feet above you, and it's just like scared the shit out of me. Next up on this list, we have sports mascots. Sometime or another, sports teams ran out of animals to use as their sports mascots, and a lot of the ones that they replace the animals with are pretty questionable. And I can definitely see why some of these would bother some kids, but one of the ones that I found while I was doing research, and I just had to show you guys, was the New Orleans Pelicans, which is an NBA basketball team, used to have a mascot, a secondary mascot. They actually have a pelican as their main mascot, which makes sense for the team, but they had a secondary mascot called the King Cake Baby that looks like this. It's like a giant baby with like a super shiny ceramic head. Who allowed this? Like, whose idea was like King Cake Baby? I think it might have been for a promotion for a bakery within New Orleans, which would make more sense than just to have a cake baby. But if it wasn't, I'm seriously questioning what the hell is going on with the NBA Association. Next up on this list, right after the mascots, we have the Burger King, the mascot for Burger King. And this one, same things apply that I just talked about, but this one is like hyper realistic. Like if you look at his face, he has like perfectly carved out chiseled beard hairs, you know, so he has those nice thick cheekbones. Like Ronald McDonald, the Burger King, like the fast food chains do not need to have mascots. Okay, they're just creepy. They never work. They just throw people off. Like I just came to get a Big Mac or a double with Big Mac sauce. I remember when I first started doing research for this, there's this video that's very popular right now. And you guys probably have seen it, of this guy wearing a Burger King crown on an airplane, and he says some very suggestive things. I actually thought that this was talking about that video when I researched for it initially. And if you know, you know. But yeah, it was just like a Burger King on a plane, if you really are that curious. Next up on this list, we have the Icon of Sin. First up, that name goes hard as hell. Literally hell, because the Icon of Sin is an elite enemy from the game franchise Doom. As part of the lore for Doom, it states that the Icon of Sin is a major antagonist of the entire series, and he's actually one responsible for leading creatures into our world and trying to take it over from the depths of hell. That is so metal, dude. The reason why this guy's here, I think, is because, yes, his player model is a little bit disturbing for a kid, even though I think it looks rad as hell. But it's because in the original Doom series, the very first game, to kill this guy, you were required to blow open his skull, so he'd have like an exposed brain, and then you could like attack his big mushy brain part unprotected and kill him that way, like blow up his brain. Next up on the list, we have the Joy Virus from the TV show The Amazing World of Gumball. One of my personal favorites. It's pretty much a zombie outbreak, like tuned down to a children's level. The Joy Virus is an infection that like forces you to be happy. It forces you to constantly be smiling. It forces you to want to hug other people, because by hugging other people, you spread this virus. Like I said earlier, I think the reason it's on here is because it's just like every other run-of-the-mill zombie horror film. Somebody gets infected, it spreads a bunch, there's a whole outbreak of it. I just think it's kind of funny that they turned it into like a happiness virus, and that the cure for it is depression, which, you know, is a little bit too real. Next up on this list, we have the Mayan Calendar, and to go along with it, the 2012 phenomenon. The Mayan Calendar is a complex dating system used by the ancient Mayan civilization that included multiple cycles and counts as a way to measure time. And all of them were created around 3000 BC. So these had been around for a very long time. And the last date on a lot of these calendars was December 21st, 2012. So a lot of people that believed in what the Mayan people believed in thought that December 21st, 2012 was going to be the last day that the Earth existed, and then after that, the world was going to end. Now, it just happened to obviously be a coincidence that it ended on 2012. Some of our clocks aren't accurate forever. Watches, even like a modern watch, like the most complex watches in the entire world, like a perpetual calendar, those watches aren't accurate past the year 2100, because although 2100 is a leap year, we don't count it as a leap year. So then clocks kind of like lose their mechanism. So like we're obviously not, you know, worried about 2100 coming and being like, oh no, the world's gonna end, what are we gonna do, we're all gonna die. No, we're just like, this is just a mechanical flaw. Next up on the list, we have the Punisher. The Punisher is an anti-hero from the superhero universe that has probably tried to kill your favorite superhero at least once. He's a trained mercenary and has no remorse killing anybody and no empathy at all. He is just stone cold. Apparently he has a very tragic backstory where he lost his entire family, and now this guy is like dangerous because he feels nothing. He's like dead inside. He has nothing left to live for. Next up on this list, we have another open-ended one. We have the news. And I think this one is kind of cool because that's reality. You know, you can have a scary mercenary trying to kill Spider-Man, but, you know, the war in Afghanistan or something like that that you view on the TV that's real as hell. Like, that's actually what's going on. The news is like the first experience that we have to show how cruel our world can actually be. And although that is kind of sad, it's important to learn that not everything is sunshine and rainbows all the time. Next up on the list, we have Violet turns into a blueberry. So in both the Willy Wonka films, the original one and the remake that had Johnny Depp in it, Violet Beauregard is like this little... She's like a little shit, okay? She doesn't listen to anybody. She's super cocky. Apparently, she has some bubblegum chewing world championship trophy or something. And she won a golden ticket. And she got to go and have a tour of Willy Wonka's factory. And while she's going through it, there's an experimental bubblegum that is shown to her. That is supposed to taste like, I think it's supposed to taste like a Thanksgiving dinner. All courses. And Willy Wonka straight up says, do not chew that. Do not eat that. It's not safe to... And this bitch takes it anyway. She doesn't give a fuck. And of course, she starts chewing it, and she's like, wow, the flavors are immaculate. You got the gravy, the stuffing, the roast beef chicken. And then she gets to, like, a blueberry dessert, and she actually starts to turn blue and inflates to a perfectly spherical person. Like, she turns into a literal blueberry. You know, that could have been like a testament to disobedience, being like, this is what's going to happen if your mom tells you to not eat cookies out of the cookie jar and you eat the cookies, you're going to turn into a freaking cookie. But it is kind of, we can look back at it now and it's kind of funny, but as kids that probably could have been pretty terrifying. Okay, next up on the list we have the Wicked Witch of the West, the main antagonist in the Wizard of Oz movie series. I just think the reason why she's on here is because the makeup crew did her dirty. Like, look at that big ass honker plus sharp ass chin combination. Like, she is definitely instilling some nightmares into children with that face. And finally on this list we have Wormy Closeups. In the TV show SpongeBob SquarePants, there's an episode where Patrick and SpongeBob are tasked with taking care of Sandy's critter collection, and one of their critters' names is Wormy, and he's a caterpillar. And as the episode goes on, Wormy turns into a butterfly, as caterpillars do, and every single time Wormy lands on somebody's face, like the butterfly version of it lands on somebody's face, they show a realistic close-up of what a butterfly looks like. And you know, I don't know if you know this, but they're not as cute and beautiful as close-up in their face. They kind of just look like they have a fly head on some beautiful wings. And everybody just overreacts and gets super scared every time. And apparently a lot of kids, whenever that would happen in the TV show, would get really bothered by it, because they're like, but Wormy's supposed to be so cute, and I love Wormy. Why is it's so scary? But anyways, that's all we have for this episode. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Thank you for being amazing, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.